Hello everybody! Welcome to another Nicaragua video. It has been a while, but I am happy because Scott is here with me, and Scott has been making videos very regularly. So I want to talk to him all about that and his time here in Nicaragua. What's up, Scott? How's it going?
Hey, things are good. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on, and hello everybody.
So I figured a good place to start sort of would be when do you remember in your life when you first heard the word Nicaragua?
The moment that I think you're looking for was somewhere between 2003 and 2005. My wife and I were newlyweds, and we like to watch. We were always interested in travel. Always kind of kicked around the idea of moving abroad. Uruguay had been really high on our list for a long time, and we were watching. And this is ridiculous because it's terrible, but House Hunters International. And we used to watch it we're having dinner, you'd watch it, and we weren't like learning from it, right? But it would give a pretty neat view of a lot of places. Like, here's a country or a part of a country, a region that you may not have thought of before, and hopefully they actually filmed it there. They don't necessarily. And it gives you at least this like draw. And both of us remember early on that we saw this episode that we don't know for sure, but we think it was filmed around San Juan del Sur. Of course, 20 years ago, right? So even if it was San Juan, it's quite different. Ago. Yeah. And growing up in the U.S., because I'm pushing 50, right? So I have that memory of 1979 and the Contra War and all that is very recent. Yep. So like we knew Nicaragua was a household word, but had never thought of it as a travel or living destination. And in 2003, we just saw this episode, and both of us were like, well, that looks really interesting. It was so nice and so a surprise that both of us were like, the thing that drew us to Nicaragua, of course the episode made it look nice, but it was that clearly we knew nothing of Nicaragua. And therefore, it was this amazing potential of discovery that lay out there. And of course, we didn't move for a really long time, but it really planted a seed. And when the opportunity then came up to move to Nicaragua the first time, it was this really like, remember that episode? Well, let's go check it out. All right. So I think it was a really clear moment that both of us point to is like, no, that was the moment that it went from just a country we knew from a history lesson to this is a place we had a solid interest in, and it had become part of our consciousness.
Let's see, you used the phrase move to Nicaragua. So when did you first step foot in Nicaragua?
So I first stepped foot, I don't know exactly like the month, but it was in the later half of 2015. And the quick background.
It was a while ago.
It was. So the quick,
like 8 years ago.
8 years, a little bit over.
Yeah.
The quick story is we had been living briefly in Panama. And had to go back to the States because I'm an American. Had to go back to the States at the time, I still had work in the U.S. And they needed me in both New York and California for a little bit during that summer. And so we had been in Panama. We had really found it interesting. We had not gotten very much time there, but we had given up at that point. We had already moved out of the U.S. And when we were in the U.S., it was just work and live in hotels and then get back out. But we didn't keep a place in Panama. We went to the U.S. and my job decided I had to move to California. And I said, yeah, I don't need this job. And we immediately took an apartment in Nicaragua. And the logic was we had loved Panama. It had been an absolutely wonderful experience. And we said, if Panama was that great, we need to investigate Central America. We've got to know the region better, because obviously we just kind of chose Panama as a starting point in Central America. We had lived in Europe. And so we said, well, Costa Rica is kind of expensive and it's really close. It's like too close. And we both said, remember that episode, that TV show about Nicaragua. So the combination of that history with, we had just been in Panama, wanted to explore more. My wife is a researcher, right? I said, let's see what you can find. And she found this beautiful house, Casa Los Arcos in Grenada. And she sent it to me while I was at the office and said, look at this beautiful house I found. And I'm like, yep, just rent it. I don't care where it is. I don't care. That's because what were we going to do? We didn't know enough about Nicaragua to make an educated guess.
But you rented, though.
We rented.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So we rented, and and we have kids, right? We had 2 little kids at the time. Now they're older, but they were quite little, and so we got a place. It was 2 large bedrooms. It was basically a dual master house, a pool in the middle, absolutely beautiful, in the tourist center of El Centro in Grenada. And the quick story for us is, Nicaragua proved to be absolutely fantastic, and Grenada, while I like Grenada, I like it as a tourist stop, I do not like living there. That was, and it took some time for my wife to...
Could you get more into that, actually?
Sure.
I would love to, because people ask me a lot about the different parts of Nicaragua, and my general gif is like, if you like partying, go to San Juan del Sur. If you want to see touristy stuff, go to the other places. And if you like locals, go to Managua. But obviously, that's an oversimplification. So I would love to learn more about.
So Grenada, living in Grenada was, so it's a beautiful city, but it's smaller, like it's about 150,000 in the metro, and it's got nearly all of the traditional tourism in the country is going to Grenada. I mean, it's got the pedestrian way and the restaurants and so many hotels, and for good reason, right? It's a beautiful city. But the problem with any city of that nature, Barcelona would be a great example, is that you end up with a ratio of tourists to locals that ends up being very unhealthy. And so what often ends up happening, and both of those cities suffer from this, is an over-tourism where whole sections of the city no longer have much, if any, authenticity, and the prices start going up, and the people who are there are only there to interact with foreigners. And of course, Cancun is like that.
Sounds a lot like San Juan del Sur.
Oh, for sure.
San Juan del Sur was... I lived there for 5 weeks straight, and it was like very much what you're describing. It was like bizarre.
Yeah,
Really.
I've spent some time in San Juan del Sur. That is certainly more extreme than Grenada, so don't think it's that bad, right? Okay. San Juan del Sur is its own animal.
Interesting, you're saying the vibe was still there.
Oh, for sure. And living in El Centro, even though we were on the edge of it, like every few hours, someone would come to our door and beg, because we were in the tourist zone. So this is just their route. And they weren't actually poor. It was just they would walk by, say they were foreigners, and instantly beg through the door. And they would scream they'd see me working.
That happens here. So I live in Bologna, right? And that happens. I used to have the front of the house more open so people could see into the sort of front part. And people could sort of see there was activity, so that would happen way more. But not every day. No, like it was like maybe at the most 2 or 3 times a week, and I recognize the faces, and it's the same people claiming the same sickness that their mom has from a year ago. And like they say the exact same thing, and I'm just like, come on.
Yeah. When I lived in downtown Leon, I lived right in the city, in Laborio, for those who know it. That was more like the Managua experience. Like it happened, but it wasn't a constant thing. In Grenada, it was like you couldn't.
So Grenada was a bit intense for you.
It was terrible. Like to the point where it took me probably 6 months, nearly, to convince my wife it was okay to move back to Nicaragua. That the Grenada experience was not universal. Like that's how extreme it was. I had come back when she had not. I spent just like 2 weeks here in 2019. And I came back with like this renewed, I was helping a friend decide on relocating. And he lives here now. But I had come down with some friends and we had hung out for a little while, and we were in the San Juan area mostly, and some in Grenada. And when I went back home, I was like, you know what? We want to live in Nicaragua. And I'm like, now that I've been back, like all this love of Nicaragua came flooding back. And at this point, we had lived in many more countries and had gotten stuck in the U.S. for a little while. This is pre-COVID, but we had already gotten stuck there for work things for a year and a half. And I came back and talked to my wife, and I said, we've been searching around the world for a place to call home base. And one of the struggles we've had is trying to define what perfect is, perfect for us, of course. Yes. That was really hard because, for example, Spain is amazing. Living in Spain was one of the best things ever. But it is so physically far, both in distance for travel and in time zones, from our families and friends in the United States that carried a big negative.
Got to call everyone at 6 a.m. and I know what you mean. Like my parents, I have family half in England or half in Europe and half in the U.S. and I can only talk to the Europeans if I like make sure I call them right first thing in the morning, because for them it's like 12-hour time difference or something, or 14-hour. Like it's absurd.
Right. Yeah, so that stuff really drove us away from Europe, even though we did love living there, and we potentially could easily live in Europe. Like we have a situation that it's an option for us, and we really seriously investigated a number of places and absolutely loved it. But Nicaragua was so much of all the things we needed, right? Close to family, physically. If we need to get back to family in the U.S., hours. If we need to talk to them on the phone, same time zone. Like all these great things. And low cost of living, like even lower than most of the places we've been in Europe. Not necessarily lower than all, but really low. And again, really good opportunity for the country would let us stay. It wasn't like this big complicated thing. And so I went back and talked to her, and I was like, look, we're trying to find the perfect place. We could spend our entire lives trying to find the perfect place. We know that Nicaragua checks all of our necessary boxes. We know that we love it. We know that it's affordable. We know that we can do it. We know that it's safe, and we know that it is a place we would be happy, and we know it would make us happier than other options we've considered. One day, my business partner and I were looking at houses or structures in San Juan del Sur at the time, foolishly, and we found one on the beach, and I showed it to my wife. I'm like, see, imagine our life in a place like this. This would be so much better than North Dallas. And she goes, oh, that's on the beach. I'm like, yeah. She's like, we could have a house on the beach? And I'm like, yes. And she goes, well, I would move if we got a house on the beach. I said, now wait. This is like our epic conversation. I said, if you say,
for sure.
Right.
Do you really mean this?
I'm like, if you say,
no turning back.
Right. I'm like, I will sell this house today, and I will fly down there and buy a house on the beach. And she goes, I mean it. If I can live on the beach, we will move to Nicaragua. I'm like, done. And so, unfortunately, COVID hit, right as we were in the midst of trying to get our first place.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting delayed because of that. But that was literally, she said it, and we're like, done. Everything from that conversation over breakfast was, now the house is for sale.
Yeah, that's how, once you get the family on board, everything else.
Well, and my kids were like, we love living abroad. We don't want to be in the States. Nicaragua, they only kind of remembered because they were so little. But they were like, our memories of it are good. Yeah, I think we want to go back there. And but it's funny, my kids, so this is 3 years ago now, were like, so we'd love to grow up in Nicaragua, but we know when we're adults, we're going to move back to Texas because that's close to family and cousins, and it's what we know. And my eldest daughter had already picked out where she wants an apartment someday in North Dallas.
Nicaragua and Texas are closer than the East and the West Coast.
Oh, by far.
Yeah, it's super close.
But it only
took...
took...
Even that expensive,
It's
plane tickets are like $300-$400.
Oh yeah, no, it's not bad. Actually, from here we can get to Texas for $120. Yeah, you have to really hunt around, but those flights are there.
That's crazy.
It is. But now it was only about a year here, and both of my kids are like, no, we're planning on living here or nearby. My eldest is she's toying with Guatemala in the future, but just as an idea. But they don't want to go any farther than that. They want to be in the general region. They really love it here. They're like, nope, this is home. This is what they consider home.
Yeah, that's such a cool story too, because it really goes to show how you can't think that one experience is everything, and a lot of people do that, and especially with women or dating about Nicaragua. I'm sure you've come into this with, you make videos and people comment, right? They'll be like, all right, what are women like that? Okay, all 4 million women, tell me about them. It's like,
they're like
what? Oh yeah, because this one experience someone had, that means they're all this way, It's like, people.
Yes. I'm amazed.
That mistake, so.
There's so many of the comments that I get are, I once heard somebody claim this thing happened. And it's a reasonable thing. It could happen, right? He was robbed on a street corner. I'm like, okay, I guarantee someone has been robbed on a street corner in Nicaragua. There's no way they weren't. Okay, so, but you do realize that in the United States, that happens every minute. Right, and we don't freak out about it because it's just a part. I mean, it sucks.
Well, no, the U.S. doesn't have any problems. We're the land of the free. Everyone wants to be us, man. Obviously.
It's so weird here, though, that the stories of it happened once. I'm like, yes, it happened. All kinds of things happened once. This is why we use percentages when talking. If you're not talking to me about a percentage, then I know this doesn't matter. Right, anecdotal evidence of things.
That's called hearsay.
Right. I mean, even if you know it happened, it's still anecdotal. Like I've had bad things happen to me here, right? But obviously none of them are tragic. I'm here and I'm fine and I'm happy. But like some negative things have happened. Will they happen to you? Probably not. It was probably a very freak thing that happened to me, but something will happen to you. But you know what? If I was living in the U.S., something would happen to me too. I was in the U.S.
I got mugged in the U.S. and
I had the police involved in stealing my car in the U.S. Right? I got on the news, all kinds of things. Like, it was crazy.
To make a pivot, I want to talk about YouTube now, because I think it's really cool, man, seeing how you're really passionate. And like you made so much content over the years, but I can tell how now, like, you want to be sharing stuff and putting yourself out there. And I want to ask, like, what are you trying to do? Like, why are you making videos here? What's your...
So I think I have to look at this historically. So 1999, which is a big year for me. I started my own firm in early 99. And my roommate and I were like, we hated working for people, but we loved working. And the thing that made us made us so upset was that we would get jobs and they wouldn't let us do a good job. They forced us to do bad work, and it was really frustrating.
Yeah, it's all about looking like you're doing a good job.
Yes, it was awful.
Not doing a good job. That's
right.
different.
Yeah. So we said, you know what? Let's just start our own firm and answer to no one and start doing stuff. And so we did, and it took about a year to get going, but we did. And so 99 was a big year. Later in the year, as part of starting the company, I ended up, I don't know if you've ever started a company, but you tend to be pretty poor for a really long time. So we were living on couches of friends and stuff. And so we had friends in Ithaca, New York, and we were crashing on their couches. And while I was living this like really wild on the road, constant consulting lifestyle, trying to bootstrap a company, I kind of didn't have really great communications with my family just because I was busy, right? I mean, we had good communications, but like I couldn't like call them and talk to them every day. I was living far away from home. And so I started writing a blog before the Word existed, before there were WordPress and platforms like that. I started just hand coding HTML and putting it up on a website because we owned a hosting company. We owned all this stuff because of the business. So I was like, I have these resources. I'll just make a blog. But in the early days, I would just delete it after a week and put up another one. Very foolish. And after about a year...
It's not foolish at all, man. People have too much attachment to their content. Really.
But
you need to be able to just create, wipe slate clean, create.
I actually really appreciate my old stuff.
That you didn't use was ever wasted. It all developed your skills and served some purpose. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made it.
True. But in about 2000, so I really started this kind of process as a way to communicate to family and friends. Like, I was sharing my life so that I didn't have to worry that people weren't up to date on what was going on, because my life was kind of an adventure.
You could just send them the link to the blog instead of typing it all.
Right, yeah. And so I got more and more into it, and my blog is enormous, right? Like, there's so much content. And at some point, I've always been, like, I was a professional photographer when I was younger. Like, making videos and doing YouTube kind of stuff has always been interesting. And I got into podcasting back in the 2003, 2004 range, and did that for a little while. And so I'd done some of these things. So I was really busy with my company for a long time. So that took a lot of my attention. But I always did this blog in the background. And then about 4 years ago, almost exactly, I said, you know what? I'm so tired of writing long form every day what was going on. At that point, I could take my cell phone and set it on my desk, because I was always working, and just record what was going on for the day as if I was calling my dad, but it was always after he would have gone to bed. And so I would just record for him and then just upload to YouTube, and no edit, no intent of anybody seeing it, and just be like, hey Dad, follow this, and every day you can see what's going on. And so it made my life easier that instead of spending 30 minutes writing, I could spend 4 minutes recording. And that kind of got me into a groove. I'd always liked filming. This was after I had filmed my show, Take Flight with Scott, where I'd taken my nieces to Europe for a few months and filmed them traveling. But I never got into like editing or anything like that. I was just recording some content. And then it really was through COVID. Like, obviously I did it a lot because what else are you going to do?
Stuck at home all day.
Yeah, I'm at home, but I didn't have any cameras. I didn't have like anything to do it with. It was like I just had my OnePlus 9 or whatever. And when we moved to Nicaragua, And I'd kind of played with this idea a little bit before then, but because of COVID, it didn't happen. When we moved, I was like, oh, I should record more. I should make sure I have a good GoPro and like get more stuff. And we moved, and I did a little bit, and then we got so busy that I lost like 6 months that I basically never recorded. And then one day we decided we were going to move into Leon. Long story, like living at the beach can be stressful. And so we got a place in Leon, and I made a video where I don't know, I just had a little bit more free time. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit more work. And I did like a funny edit, and I did a little bit. And it was just a little bit more polished than things I'd done before. And all of a sudden, instead of 5 views, and at this time I had like 80 to 100 followers, and mostly family and friends. Right, from way back, that like I would post a clip of my dog, a clip of my kids playing.
So that's
like
when you broke through and you realized that when you post content that's useful to people,
right,
it grows.
Yeah, it was like a completely different thing, and I hadn't thought of making a channel in that way. I'd never intended to make a vlog that people were going to watch, but this one episode, I like just had some fun with it, and I got like, I don't know, probably like 100 views. It was not anything crazy, but it was like,
everything's relative, man.
Right.
It
was like
someone like there's most people who make YouTube videos would love a video of theirs to get 100 views. Most
right.
people.
Well, and I did. I was super excited. And I'm like, okay, things just changed. And so I said, okay, I need to think about this. What did I do? Is this something that could make sense? What did I do that people were interested in? And so I played around with it. That was January. And from January to March, this is 2022, so about 2 years ago, I was like, okay, trying to figure this out. And so this moving to Leon thing got like 100 views. I was like, whoa. And I had over 100 followers. And I was just starting to get followers I didn't know. Right? Like, this isn't like far-flung friends. Now it's random people. Yeah. And then in March, I made an episode. I went to Chinandega and Corinto and filmed like the parks and like a whole bunch of buildings, and like it was much more like my episodes now. And I hit 300 subscribers and like 300 views, and it was like completely different numbers. And I'm like, okay, people actually want to see this. Now I see what's going on. And
YouTube thrills.
Yeah, it was like, all right. And I edited it. Like, I had done a bunch of things that I hadn't done before, and I'd taken people with me, and it was like, okay, I don't know the formula, but I can see clearly that I'm making something people are interested in. And really, that was that was it, right? It was like I really enjoy owning cameras, and I like doing the editing. Like, I like all the pieces.
Yeah.
And I kind of accidentally became a vlogger that people were watching a little bit, and that was it. And I was kind of hit by.
That makes a lot of sense, because I can tell the way you create is not like someone who's just making a YouTube channel. Like, you very much, I relate to that at least. I can tell that you have a habit of creating an expression. And you're sort of, that energy, that habit has existed for many years, right? And it was just going to other platforms, or you were writing, but then it evolved into video and recording and audio, and then YouTube, and then sharing. And then it's like, for me, it's like, how do I sort of experience something in a way where I can take that experience, compartmentalize it, sort of cut it up a little bit, and then package it, and then people learn from it. And that's how I try to live my life. It's just like, make anything you do is a potential video.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm very much like that. So you probably know I have something like 20 channels. And so I have some that are older. And they're like, I made a channel for traveling with friends so that I could film traveling with friends and put it somewhere. And I have a channel that was always me doing business education, business and technology education. And that one, it took me 4 years on the vlog to catch up to that one. And now, like, I crossed when both were between 2,000 and 2,002 subscribers. Like, that's how close it was. And now I'm at like 2,100 and 5,200, right? So the one is way outpacing the other, but the other was thousands ahead for, I don't know, 5 years. But it wasn't a vlog, right? Very different thing. I don't even associate them as the same part of my life. But I have a channel that's just viewing Nicaragua in 360 degrees. I have a channel that's just traveling from the dashboard of my car, like high speed, because I enjoy making that. Because I enjoy making that.
Yeah. People like seeing that as well, because they need to see that, like, in their heads, everything's on fire. It's burning. There's explosions, helicopters flying through the air, dropping bombs. Like, that's how they think about Nicaragua. So when they see, like, chickens and birds squawking and stuff, and children playing in
and beautiful horizons and gorgeous fields and sunsets and the mountains in the distance, and you're like, this is gorgeous, where are you? You're like, this is just driving around Nicaragua. Yeah. And I do the same thing in the US. I have one, I haven't posted it yet. I actually drove from Texas to New York to Florida in a single go and have it all on video.
So let's see, another YouTube question for you. I've noticed that your videos recently have been more sort of, it seems like you're trying to, you're making something that's informative, whereas before you were experiencing something and just recording it. So I'm curious, like, what kind of things do you think have you personally been sort of trying to do differently with your videos, especially recently, maybe over the past maybe 4 or 5 months?
So I think a big thing that's changed for me is just what my free time has looked like. Because while I'm a full-time YouTuber, in a way, probably more than most people, the reality is I run multiple companies full-time, and I'm extremely busy. And those workloads can scale up and down quite a bit. From other countries.
Sort of fills in the gaps, so to speak.
Right. So at times I'll be like, I've got free time. And like earlier this year, so before the period you're talking about, I had a number of months where I had access to our car unfettered. I was the only driver around because the other driver spent a huge portion of the year living in Southeast Asia. And so I had the car and was constantly running errands. And so I would be in different physical places and be like, I got my GoPro, I'm going to run out and record while I'm out. Record for an hour and just head back home. And so I got a lot of footage where I was out and about. And I had someone living with me for a little while that she was a backpacker and living here, and she'd be like, let's go, let's record some stuff. So we were doing things together, and I had that kind of energy going on. Now, for the last several months, I've had an awful lot of really good stuff with work. Like, there's a lot of growth, a lot of things going on. My key right-hand person at work has been living in Europe for a few months on an extended vacation, so I'm covering for her. And so there's a lot of stuff where I'm really tied to my desk. And so because of that, to me, the content I enjoy making the most is when I'm able to get out and explore new places and walk around. It's also the hardest for me to find time to do because I'm doing so much stuff otherwise, and I'm really tied to my office a bit, which I'm trying to fix, but it's very hard. And so now I'm putting in a lot of effort into, I've discovered that if I really proposition people for questions, like, tell me what you want me to talk about, there's a lot of information that I have that I don't think about being important necessarily.
Yeah, you just don't realize it's relevant to people.
Yeah, and then
that's why you have to listen to people's feedback, otherwise you don't know all the things that are like, what?
Right.
Why don't you think you can do this?
Right. Someone will be like, can you tell me what it costs to move into an apartment? And I'm like, oh, okay. Right. So I made an episode of breaking down an actual purchasing of chairs and like the most boring stuff. But here's a real world budget. Here's the actual dollars spent on moving into a studio apartment in the last month in Leon. Here you go. And so a couple things, because I love doing a bunch of these things. I love looking at houses. Right. I'm not a real estate agent, but I like looking at houses. So when someone says, hey, you can come see a house, I'm like, I'm there. Run over, just film the house. And people really like that.
That's awesome, man, because I just don't get out enough, but I can tell how, as a YouTuber here with access to foreigners, there's so much opportunity to just make charismatic videos showing off people's real estate to foreigners who can call them and buy it. And they're happy to. They're like, yeah, come record it, because it's a free ad.
You know what's funny is
might result in the sale of their house.
Yeah. So if you get expats, they're like, supportive. Yes. If you get locals, the chances that they want you to promote their house is definitely under 50%. They'll be like, no, you're going to sell the house. I don't know. And you're like, but you advertised it. They're like, yeah, but we want it limited. You're like, what?
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's really weird. The number of people who are like, and even real estate agents, like I'll work with an agent and they'll show me the house. And we're like, we just send, if anybody calls us, we just give them your number. And they're like, nope, We don't want anyone promoting a house we're selling. And it's like, do the people who pay you to sell the house know that you're intentionally stopping people from finding out about the house? And I can't figure out what the motivation is. We have some theories of like they think someone's going to steal it or they're going to get cut out or something.
Okay, Nicaragua is amazing, but it's not like everyone is totally open-minded. There absolutely is prejudice in these things, and people treat foreigners very well, but they also think foreigners are kind of stupid. So like, it's like
many are.
Yeah, I don't blame them. I mean, it's yeah, I don't blame them for saying that at all. But there is like a mistrust. One time, there was a lady who did not want me to be on the lease because I was a foreigner, and she felt like I could just fuck off and there's nothing she could do about it. Yeah. Sometimes people just don't want to bother with it. It's like, I've met people who have something and but like, they feel lazy in the moment that you want to buy it from them. They don't really want to sell it. So
yeah,
you have to like get lucky and time it when they actually want to sell it, you know? And it's like,
so there's a house near me here that people are constantly asking me about because it's a prime property at a good price, like $400 a month for a big colonial in a nice location. And I've been in it, but I didn't film it. But I know the property really well. And so I tell people about it, and there's a sign on it, you know, say Aquilar, and there's the number, and we call the number, like, yeah, we'll come show it to you, you can put it on the video, and people will come, and we'll stand out there, and we'll be like, we're here, and they're like, no, we're not coming, we don't want to show it. And we're like, you could have said no earlier, like, you've wasted days, like, we're out here, standing here, I stood there for 30 minutes with a camera just waiting, and we just keep calling them, they're like, we're not coming. And they kept making excuses instead of just saying they weren't coming. Yeah. Oh, well, we need this thing. We need someone to commit to. Yeah.
Something I've observed here. At first, people in general in Nicaragua are very untrusting, even if you're a foreigner. So they're always going to think that you're trying to scam them if they don't understand what you're doing or it seems weird. And if it seems beneficial to them, they're going to be like, why would you do this? That will be a flag to them. So I've found that if I'm just asking like random people about videos and stuff, that's how I get treated. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But when I don't do the video part until I've had interactions with people, like for example, you stay at a hostel a couple times and then you met the owner, then you ask, like, when I've done it in that context, like, everybody wants a video. Like, they all want videos, you know? It's just like, so it sounds like what's kind of happening is that if they actually believed you, mm-hmm. they would let you. But because they're very cautious and they think that maybe there's some angle you have or you're going to show it to a thief or whatever. Because in Nicaragua, letting someone into your house it's different than in the U.S. letting someone into your house. Like in the U.S.,
that's true.
Letting someone in your house, they could just be like somebody, a salesperson at your door, or whatever. Whereas here in Nicaragua, if you let someone in your house, if a Nicaraguan lets you into their house, they respect you. That means that like they are making a gesture to you that they would not make to most people at all. Like letting someone into your house is an honor. It's a very culturally it's funny because as foreigners, people let us into their houses all the time. But it really is like, I mean, why do you think their houses are surrounded by walls and bars and?
Yeah, it's very much the citadel of life. I've noticed. So I have a new channel. I don't know. I think you saw it, Nicaragua, and we're starting to do interviews on it. It's very new, right? And we're really excited because we have a video from like 4 days ago. So this is a brand new channel that had 21 subscribers when we brought out this video. And I think we're pushing 700 views now on a 3-hour long video. And like with no subscribers, like now there's more subscribers, but like it's moving really fast. And so for the last couple weeks, because the channel's about 3 weeks old, and about 3 weeks ago it was what's going on? What are you doing? We showed up a few places. Some of the people know us and they're like whatever. But after that video, we're getting like constant calls from venues and artists, and they're like, "Can I be interviewed on this show? Can you come out to the museum and film an event there? Can you come to our and we're getting constant requests from like big name places.
Power of a niche.
Yeah,
provide value to.
Yeah, they're like, you're just making concert videos and like interviewing bands. This is amazing, like so straightforward and simple, and nobody's doing it. And now like we went to a place here, and they're like, whoa, you're with them? Your drinks are free. They're like, film here anytime. And yeah, it's really cool. It's amazing how fast that's taking off, and it's just fun. It gets us in places like we're guaranteed a table at any venue. We're guaranteed a table at any venue.
I think that's sort of the true power of YouTube. People look at YouTube and they think like, okay, how can I get thousands and thousands of dollars a month from AdSense and ads? But really how YouTube actually changes people's lives is through networking. It's insane like when you physically exist, it's very challenging as a human to find other like-minded people. Most of us are totally alone. We feel like, we don't know anyone else who's like-minded and that kind of thing. But the moment you start making videos about a subject, it totally changes, because suddenly it's like this doorway opens, and the only people who come out of that doorway, all the interactions with them are like-minded. And it's like, it just fucking shatters this illusion that you're separate and disconnected and alone. And like, as soon as you make videos and people can contact you, it's like, yeah, like YouTube is amazing. Honestly, it's incredible what it does. And that effect alone, even if you make videos and you never make any money off of them, if you just meet people from those videos, like my whole life changed on multiple times simply because I had a video. Like I am in Nicaragua because I got invited to an event because I'd made a video on YouTube, and I got the house I was renting at in Nicaragua, or in the U.S. at the time. The guy rented it to me because he looked at my YouTube channel and saw I actually made YouTube videos and my face was the same. So in his head, I'm reliable, I'm credible, I'm trustworthy. It was literally like a degree or something. YouTube is such a profound social tool that I have something that shows my face that is a big enough number that people will take me seriously. Even though it's not huge, you know, it's like a lot of people, if they put their minds to it, they could make a YouTube channel and get like 10 or 20,000 subscribers. And it's crazy how much that, like I got my job that I have now where it's not I have like a job where I make courses for this small team in California. And I just, it's amazing because they just give me content and I just edit it, and I have total freedom to like make it better in any way that I can, and I just edit videos, and it's not hourly. I just have a certain amount of work I say I'm going to do every week, and as long as I get that done, it's great. But the only reason I have this job is because when somebody is looking at a hiring process, they can just Google my name and I show up, and that's very credible. Like being able to Google you is huge, and if you do a lot of YouTube, you will be who shows up when your name gets Googled.
Or something. That sucks.
At one point, if you Googled IT professional, it was my picture that came up first on Google.
That's cool.
I had Symantec, managers at Symantec called me one day. I was working on Wall Street, and they're like, go to Google, type in IT professional, you have to see this. And I'm like, what the, oh my gosh.
So if you want to check Scott out, you can just go to his YouTube channel, or how should they reach out to you if they want to get in touch with you or find your stuff?
Definitely my YouTube channel is probably the easiest. It's Scott Alan Miller Vlog. Super easy. My middle name is Alan, A-L-A-N. If you start typing that in, it's going to say Scott Alan Miller Nicaragua. That's me.
So they just go to YouTube, and then they type Scott Alan Miller, and then, boom, they find you. The orange thing with the beard.
Yes, the orange thing with that makes it very recognizable. And there's a million ways. Every video has, I've got a Nika Loro account, which is like Twitter. I've got a Nicagram account, which is like Instagram. I have Instagram itself, which I do see from time to time. Email is on there. There's a million ways you can put comments on there. I'm pretty contactable. And yeah.
Wicked. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
Great to be here.